Hey guys, how's it going? Michael Troy here. Today I'm so excited to bring you this interview. Today I have living legend, cartoonist, one of the most important cartoonists of our generation, Trina Robbins. It is so nice to have you here. Thank you so much for talking to me. I've been a fan of your work for so long, and I really enjoy everything you do. How are
Thank
you
you.
doing today?
I made it. I mean, that part is good. I went downstairs and fed my chickens in the backyard and came upstairs and made coffee, and I'm good.
Is that how you start your day every day?
Yes.
Yeah, and you're in San Francisco, right?
And it's bloody freezing here.
I know I'm in West Hollywood, and we had a rough couple of days of torrential rain and
Yes,
cold.
so
So
did we. Yeah.
yeah, we can barely handle it here in California since we're so spoiled.
It never rains in California, right?
I know, so I do kind of enjoy it. A lot, I don't want to like talk too much about a lot of the stuff that already people already know about you. A lot of my channel is like art focused, and I love to talk about the art. So I'm curious to know, a lot of your art seems very fashion forward in a way. Like I've seen a lot of your paper doll art, which really appealed to me. I loved, dolls when I was little. I played with Barbies, and I
Good
love
for you.
drawing all kinds of I made my own paper dolls and stuff.
Yes,
So
I did too. I
I
did
was
too.
always
I had a brown paper bag, a grocery store paper bag, and it was filled. It was the size of a phone book, filled with my paper dolls and the clothes I made for them.
so you must have been just drawing since you could pick up a pencil, or what
Yes.
inspired your art, just that thing that inspires every little artist, or
Well, if you draw, if you're born drawing, I mean, as soon as you can hold a crayon in your little chubby fist, you start drawing.
did your parents encourage your artistic
Yes,
ability?
absolutely. I had good parents. They definitely encouraged me.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
my mother bought me comics. I had a good parents.
So now I've heard you say in the past that you weren't really a big fan of superhero comic books. So what kind of comic books were excited you when you were a young reader?
Just about everything that wasn't superhero. Um, the comics my mother bought me were the kind for kids, like Our Gang and you know the funny animal comics. But as soon as I could buy my own comics, as soon as I was old enough to walk, you had to cross two streets to get to the candy store that sold comics. As soon as I was old enough to cross two streets by myself, I picked my own comics, and they tended to be about anything really about girls, or women. Obviously Wonder Woman, but much more than just Wonder Woman. Mary Marvel, for instance, who I absolutely adored because she was a girl, she was not a woman, which meant I didn't have to wait to grow up to be a superheroine. And Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, was a big favorite of mine because I fantasized living in a treehouse with my pet chimpanzee and swinging from vines. I just loved Sheena. But then also the teenage comics, which mostly were produced by Timely, which of course became Marvel. Um, Comics like Patsy Walker and Millie the Model, and many others, they really produced. They produced at least 20 at one point in the late 40s, I think, 20 teenage titles, which were, of course, read by preteens. The teenage girls were reading love comics. You always read kind of ahead of your age. And I loved them. And of course, Katie Keene, which was not Timely, that was published by Archie, but it was so different from the other Archie comics, and you readers sent in designs. I'm sure you're familiar with Katie Keene. I never sent in designs because I thought I was so young and so naive. I thought that, Bill Walken, of course, redrew all the designs, but I thought those were the designs as drawn by the readers. And I thought, oh my God, they're so good, and I'm not good enough. So I never sent them anything.
That's so interesting. So at this point, you're aware of like who the artists are, like the names, and you're like paying
Well,
attention, or
well, some of them I was aware of. I mean, as far as I was concerned, Wonder Woman was drawn by Charles Moulton because that's how he's used his name. You know, I'd never heard of William Moulton Marston or Harry G. Peter, but the ones who used, like Bill Wagen, was very personal, you know, and he even had pictures of himself. So I knew Bill Wagen. In those days, everyone did not get credit. So you didn't really know who drew them.
yeah, that's interesting. You should mention that because I'm really big on credit, and I just did a chat with Wendy Peeney, and she had mentioned how Boris Vallejo gave her the excellent advice to, and very early in her career, to make a clear and recognizable signature. And you have that. I mean, I see it all over your art all the time. The little Trina, and it's very delicate and elegant and beautiful, just like your style. So I love that.
Thank you.
And yeah, like with the Wonder Woman, it's true. When you look at all those, it only has William Marston's name all over it.
Not even William Marston. He called himself Charles Moulton.
And so
That was
weird,
his
huh?
pseudonym.
I know now it's like funny how things have changed. You know, we live in a day and age where it's like you have to be like a PR machine on top of being talented. And it's like we're so into self-promotion and our identity. And, you know, back in the day, especially a lot of comic book artists, you know, felt like I think that it wasn't like a respectable career. So a lot of them used, you know,
Yeah.
pseudonyms and things like that. Or even sometimes you know, it was frowned upon to do double duty at Marvel and DC or other comic book companies. So they would use different names so they could work for the competition. So
And of
it's
course, if their
very,
name was, you know, all the Jews who changed their name, if their name was too Jewish, you know, they changed Kurtzberg to Kirby, things like that.
yeah, I know, very interesting. I know it's funny how, you know, things look so different now, but having lived through it and seeing the actual change of it, you sort of understand why it happened. But it's such a shame, you know, it feels like so much was lost because of that. But I guess in a way, a lot of it was gained too, because people did what they had to do to, you know, survive and create and thrive and have their voices heard. So it's all very, very interesting. One of my favorite projects that you did that was pretty much my introduction to your work, and when I really became aware of it, was when you did the My Beloved Misty series for Marvel back
Oh,
in
thank you.
the day. And I was looking back at some of it, and I was like, that was really ambitious because it was a 6-issue miniseries when most of them were 4 at the time, and you weren't really doing a ton in mainstream comics at the time. So I was, and Misty was supposed to be the niece of Millie the model, and Marvel introduced this title as part of their Star line of comics, which was supposed to appeal to kids, which is something that seems to be unsuccessful anytime they try to do that anymore, sadly enough. But I'm just wondering how, if you pitched Marvel, if they came to you, how you became involved in that.
I just went right to um suddenly I've forgotten his name. The editor, the
Jim
publisher.
Shooter?
Thank you, Jim Shooter. Yes,
Yeah,
how awful of me to have forgotten his name.
not at all.
I went right to Jim Shooter, and he was great. He said, you know, when I started at Marvel, I was writing Millie the model. So
Wow.
he got it. He understood what I was doing.
Um, uh, so do you, and you wrote and drew that yourself, correct? You wrote and illustrated the whole
Oh,
thing.
yes. Oh, yeah. I was trying to repeat the girls' comics that Timely had published, you know, that had been such a success because girls loved them, you know, and they were saying girls don't read comics. And I knew that was total bullshit. Can I say bullshit? Yes. Okay. You know,
Oh yeah,
because
you can
I
say
had read
bullshit.
comics and I had read comics and my girlfriends had read comics. all kids read comics, boys and girls, when I was young. So I knew that that was nonsense, that the comic companies were suffering from a kind of collective amnesia, that they didn't remember how successful girls' comics had been. So I was just trying to bring them back. And girls loved it. They loved Misty. You have no idea how many letters I got from them. I mean, I guess once a month, or maybe it was once a week. My editor would send me these huge manila envelopes stuffed with mail. And it was such fun going through them.
It's funny when things like that happen. The way you're talking reminds me of how like a movie like Bridesmaids or My Big Fat Greek Wedding will come along and be so huge, successful, even though everyone's always saying, people aren't interested in women's films and things like that. And then lo and behold, here we are.
Course.
So that must have been very gratifying that Misty was such a success for you.
It was very gratifying, but it was also extremely frustrating because the comic book stores were awful. They're not like that anymore, thank God. But in those days, they were terrible. And I hold an unending, undying grudge against the comic book stores of the 80s and 90s. They simply did not want to carry anything for girls and women. And then they would say, well, girls don't read comics. Well, of course, if they can't find the comics they like, they're not going to read comics. So many letters that I got from fans said, I love Misty, but I can't find it. It's so hard to find, because they would order 2 copies. And when the 2 copies sold, they would not reorder. They would just go, phew, got rid of those.
Yeah, I know. That's unfortunate. I know, because it's not even giving it a chance. Was there any plans to ever do any follow-up for the Misty series?
Well, it just did not sell well enough because the comic book stores did not carry it. As simple as that. I'd love to bring Misty back. I'd love to write her right now. God, yes.
Oh, I think it would be great to see how you would write her, in this day and age. I was wondering, because you had said like you liked Mary Marvel because she was a girl and you didn't have to wait to become a woman. So was that sort of some of your reasoning behind focusing on Misty, Millie's like teenage niece, as opposed to like bringing back Millie herself?
Oh, of course. Of course.
I would also kind of like to see you do Millie the model like today, just because, especially with your fashion history and things like that, I think it would be very interesting to see how you would portray that. So, hey, Marvel, if you're listening, Trina is available for a follow-up Misty or Millie the model series here, which I would love to see.
I did do a 4-part Patsy Walker for their, I don't remember what it's called, their line where you have to see it on your phone.
Oh, okay.
I did a 4-part Patsy Walker for them. It was a lot of fun, but it was also frustrating because you could only see it on your phone.
So I'm curious, like I said, you hadn't done much work for Marvel and DC. Of course, you did your Wonder Woman series. Was there any desire or like offers from them at the time, or were you pretty much focused on, your own cartooning outside of that?
There were no offers. I would love to write just say a 6-part Wonder Woman series, or to bring back Patsy Walker, who I love. I did her in the thing where you can only see her on your phone. I did her as a typical teenager in the 40s and actually the 50s. And the artist was wonderful. Oh my God, he was so good. He knew exactly what I wanted. And that's what I would love to do that as a comic.
So I think in doing some of my research, I think I saw in a recent interview or that you don't really draw anymore.
I don't.
Do you, even for your own personal self, or just?
Well, I doodle when I'm on the phone. When I'm on the phone, I'll just draw faces or shoes or something like that.
Yeah, I guess as artists, we'll always have that inclination to busy ourselves with art while we're doing other things. um, I know that people associate you so much with Wonder Woman, but you're so much more. I mean, I know that's just like the tip of the iceberg of such
Thank you.
a wonderful, amazing career. But I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the art on that great 4-part miniseries that you did with Kurt Busiek, bridging the gap between Crisis on Infinite Earths and George Perez's relaunch. It was very nostalgic and very much a tribute, I think, to
Harry G.
Marston.
Peter, of course.
Yeah. And so I
not
was
so much
wondering,
to Marston as to Harry G. Peter. You know, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves, because he really is the other half of the creation of Wonder Woman. I mean, his Wonder Woman, the one that he drew, you know, with the eagle and the starry skirt, that's every other Wonder Woman has been based on that. Even when they put her in pants, it still has been based on his original art. He is the other the other creator of Wonder Woman.
So I was wondering how you approached like trying to emulate his style.
I had a pile of Golden Age Wonder Woman comics next to me as I drew, and I was constantly going through them. And, you know, like, how did Harry G. Peter draw this? How did he do that? You know.
I think fortunately, obviously your style, I think, lends itself very well to him, because I believe he came from fashion illustration and his style was just so lush and beautiful. And he had such great like line work and brush work. So like when you knew you wanted to, when did you know you wanted to make your own comics, or like you started making your own paper dolls and things? When did that sort of turn into?
I was drawing comics at about 10 and 11, you know, the age of 10 and 11. Always drawing comics. My mother was a school teacher. I think I'd mentioned that. And she used to bring home reams of Board of Education paper, which was your basic 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. But if you held it up, you could see a watermark that said Board of Education. And I would just fold it in half and have 4 pages. And I would, you know, just start penciling in the beginning and just do it till the end. Half the time I didn't finish them, but you know.
That's so funny. That's like a dream come true for a young artist, to have your mom come home with all those wonderful art supplies for you.
I had great parents, like I say.
It's funny, that reminds me, I think my dad used to bring home like these scratch pads from work, and we would like, they would just be like half pads, and just like me and my brother was an artist too, so we would eat them up and just draw on them and staple them together and make our own comics. I think
you go.
By hook or by crook, young comic book artists always find a way.
Of course.
When did you start learning about like the process of like penciling and inking, and were you pretty much self-taught, or were you going to school?
Totally self-taught. In the beginning, the earliest comics that I did, which were for the East Village Other, which was an underground newspaper in New York, I just took a Sharpie, basically, you know, and a piece of paper, and I just drew. I didn't even pencil.
I'm curious about your original art. Like, do you hang on to all your original art? Have you sold it over the years?
I had.
I think that's probably every artist's regret. Like,
yes.
So all the Misty is gone and all the Wonder Woman is gone.
I sent the Misty comics to the Billy Ireland Museum and Library, which is in Columbus, Ohio. And they have a huge collection of original art. I kept the paper dolls. I still have the paper dolls.
Oh,
but
good.
I sent the comics. I very foolishly, well, not foolishly, because at the time I was really, I was a very, very poor artist. And I don't mean I was a bad artist. I mean, I was poor. And
Right.
I sold my stuff for peanuts, which of course now I'm very sorry. And whatever I have left, which is just not, it's really hardly anything compared to my output, I'm keeping.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I know. I think that, like you said, that's one of the ways, comic book artists are able to make not even decent money, you know what I mean? Because you're getting
Just
a horrible
just a
page rate to
living.
begin with, and then just selling the original art for whatever you can get for it, just to, I don't know, pay the light bill or something. So it is kind of sad, um, but um, but there is a thrill to owning original art. So good for the people who have it, I guess.
Yes.
So, in addition to being, such an important cartoonist in the history of comic books and cartooning, you're also one of the most important chroniclers. I mean, you've written several books, zines,
Many.
articles about the history of women in comics. Has that always, like, what made you want to preserve that history or recognize it, celebrate it?
Well, all the guys, again, along with saying that girls don't read comics, they were all saying that women had never drawn comics. And I knew this was not true. I just knew it in my heart. So I started in 1985, really, co-writing. The first book I co-wrote with Catherine Ironwood, who was also, she was an editor at Eclipse Comics, and Eclipse was very good to me. They were very supportive, always. And I just went on from there.
It seems like Don't Call Me Babe is like probably one of your
It
most
ain't me,
iconic.
babe.
Oh,
It
it ain't
ain't
me,
me,
babe.
babe.
I was the reason I screwed that up is because I was thinking about it, because looking through a lot of your stuff, I feel like the word babe pops up a lot, and I if I remember correctly, that seems like a buzzword for feminists, like men calling women babe, you know. So
I
is
don't know.
that
Um, I use the term just, it's like, what's the equivalent? It's like you're using a word that has been used against you, but then you reclaim it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, totally. I get that 100%. I like that. So, one of your most recent projects was the Flappers book chronicling
Yes, the
women
Flapper
cartoonists.
Queens.
Did you? And am I correct? You were at least nominated, but did you win an Eisner
Oh, it
for it?
won an Eisner. It won an Eisner.
Congratulations!
But
That is
unfortunately,
so
it was
amazing.
during the pandemic. So there was no San Diego come. It was all virtual. So I
Yeah.
couldn't get up there in a fancy dress and accept my Eisner. But I have it. They mailed it to me.
Oh, that's so awesome. Do you have any other projects in the works right now, or what have you been working
Yes,
on lately?
at this very moment, I am putting together a pro-choice benefit anthology comic. The money will go to Planned Parenthood. And
That's
I have a lot of really, really good people who are doing comics for it.
yeah.
That should be out in 2023.
It's funny because I don't ever like to get too political when I'm talking about art and comics and stuff, but since you brought up pro-choice, it must be so crazy for you to just and crazy for me too to see that we're still fighting this fight so many
Oh,
years
it's
later.
ridiculous.
It's like banging your head against the wall. It
Yes,
doesn't.
yes. And I have marched. I have marched for so long. I have marched for various causes since 1960, and I'm still doing it.
Yeah. Well, never, 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 never give up, they say, right? Or I think
right?
Winston Churchill said that. um, so I'm sorry. Uh, let's see what else. You did. How do you feel about, do you have any other projects coming up where you're writing and someone else is drawing them, or?
Well, of course, I did a 4-page story. I think it was 4 pages, maybe it was less, for the anthology that I just mentioned. And it's illustrated by Marguerite Sauvage, who, God, she's so good.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
dear
love her
Lord.
art. I think
The
I
new
saw it.
women, some of the new women are so incredibly good that it's almost like, what is the point of me drawing? You're so much better than me.
It's funny because you talk about women in comics, and I guess I might have a slightly different perspective as a gay man. But I feel like, a lot of women in comics have always been there for me. You know what I mean? You, Wendy Pini, Ann Nesenti, Louise Simonson, June Bridgman, uh, Mary Wilshire, Cynthia Martin, Colleen Duran, Jill Thompson. I mean, these are
Many of those
women.
women I've worked with.
Yeah, I know. Well, comics in general is a tight knit community, so I would imagine that the women of comics would probably want to band together in a sisterhood of a arguably, getting better, but typically boys club.
Well, it's not as much of a boys' club as it used to be. It's really it. The situation for women in comics today, it's like it's beyond my wildest dreams. I never dreamed there would be so many women producing comics. It's wonderful. And of course, there's still those trolls, the weird guys who just they don't want women in their world, but they'll always be there, and I just ignore them.
Yeah, well, fortunately, they have less of a voice now, I think, or at least less of a voice that people want to hear, fortunately. I think that like you said, there are plenty of amazing women working in comic books. And I mean, you have to congratulate yourself a little for helping pave the way, or at least carry the torch.
Oh, I know
And
I did. I know I did, and I'm quite proud.
yeah, that's good. I mean, you deserve every accolade you could possibly get, and you definitely have paved the way, and uh, have done so much for the comic book industry. What is that behind you? That figure? There's like a
Oh,
doll or
oh,
something.
oh, I got her in the Salvation Army in New York in the 60s. And she has traveled with me. She's traveled from New York to San Francisco, and she's come with me on all of my moves. She is, hold on. She's a Fruit of the Loom dummy. Um, she cost, okay, when I bought her, which was in the 60s in New York in the Salvation Army, they charged me $1.98.
Wow. I bet
And
she's
she's
worth a
just,
pretty penny now.
oh, I'm sure she is. And if the cord no longer works, and I do intend eventually to have someone put in a new power cord, but if you plug it in and it works, she revolves. And I think
Wow.
originally, of course, because she's a Fruit of the Loom dummy, she was wearing Fruit of the Loom underwear, little miniature bra and panties.
How cool is that? So what artists did influence you, like when you were younger? Do you have like a cachet of favorite artists that you would say it influenced your style at all?
Um, well, of course, I didn't know artists' names in those days, but I think that the artists who drew Patsy Walker and Millie the Model and those teen comics, that my style was very influenced by those comics, even though I didn't know any names. A big influence later, not that much later really, was Matt Baker, who I adore. Who is just, nobody draws women like Matt Baker. And of course, Wally Wood, it's the way they drew women, you know. You knew that they really liked women. And I have heard, I don't think that I'm reciting libel here, but I have heard that Matt Baker was gay, which makes a lot of sense to me.
You know, it's funny you should say that because, you know, like, there is a sensibility, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I do believe men and women are equal. I do believe gay people and straight people are equal, but there is a different sensibility.
Yes, equal but different, definitely.
Yeah, I
mean,
know.
look at the different art styles.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you should say that because I do feel there is sometimes a different flourish when an artist is gay that might not necessarily be there when as a heterosexual is, you know, drawing it. Or the same could be said about a woman. I think that a woman definitely always brings something different to.
Oh yeah, it used to be an insult. They would say, "Oh, she draws like a girl." But you know, yes, we draw like girls. I draw like a girl, sure, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. We don't do those weird, angular, heavy, muscular drawings that the guys do.
That's true. Yeah, but I mean, like you look at an artist like Marie Severin though, and she definitely put the same.
There were always exceptions, Marie and Ramona.
Yeah,
you know,
Ramona
but they were
Fradon.
the only two women who could do superheroes.
But even Ramona had she did great superheroes, but there was still a certain elegance to her line that I feel like could possibly be called a feminine touch, I guess.
No, definitely. And Marie Severin was really best at the funny stuff.
Yeah, her Not Brand X or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely some great stuff there. So who will chronicle you?
I don't know.
I mean, I know.
I'm up for the chronicling.
I know. I'm sure you've written biographical stuff. Do you have like a big autobiography in mind?
I have a memoir that I wrote. You didn't know that?
No, I do. It's called
Last Girl Standing.
Yes, and I just saw the cover and I love it. It's so amazing. Did Fantagraphics put it out, I believe?
Fantagraphics, and you would love it. I can't believe you haven't read it.
I know what is wrong with me. I apologize. I'm going to definitely seek it out right after we talk.
You really will love it, I promise.
No, I know. Actually, looking through your, I mean, you have an amazing body of work, just all the stuff you've done. Although the women's comics that you did, it's funny because I know this is going to sound awful, or not awful, but I used to think you were a lesbian because I feel like because you famously did the first lesbian story. And I just feel like there was other things that you did that had sort of that weren't afraid to embrace, you know, those types of storylines. So, you know, you were doing them in a time where people weren't necessarily doing them or brave enough to be doing them. So thank you for that. Because
you're welcome. You know, a lot of people have thought I was a lesbian. At one point, a number of people thought I was Black because I drew Black heroines.
Yeah. And one of the things that you brought up recently about cultural appropriation and how you found it frustrating because I agree 100%. It's like, as a white male can like, isn't that exacerbating the problem if I write a story only about white males because that's my experience? Like, what about inclusion?
I agree. Of course.
No, so how do you juggle that?
I just don't. I mean, the whole cultural appropriation thing is ridiculous. I remember there was this big fuss when this Caucasian girl, very pretty brown-haired Caucasian girl, wore a cheongsam to her prom. The cheongsam is the woman's beautiful Chinese woman's dress that's form-fitting and has those high slits on the side. And she totally rocked it. She looked so good, but people were actually criticizing her for cultural appropriation, which is ridiculous because it's a compliment. It's not an insult, it's a compliment to the beautiful Chinese way of dressing.
I know, and it seems counterproductive to like the ideal of like what America should be. Aren't we supposed to be a melting pot of
Exactly.
like shared experiences and cultures? And like I feel like it should be flattering that, you know, you want to cook my style of food, or you know what I mean?
Exactly.
As long as you're respectful and your intention is good, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I think sometimes in the mission to be correct, we sort of paint ourselves into a corner sometimes. But if the intention's good, the intention's good. Is there any faction of artists, female artists, that you would like to cover or chronicle?
Oh,
That
there's one left. I've done all the early 20th century women artists. I've written about all of them, the women cartoonists. But there's one left that whose story I have not told, and I wasn't going to. Well, I don't want to give her name or anything. I don't want to. Let's wait till I'm working on it.
okay. All right. We won't spoil it. I know.
As soon as I finish this anthology, I intend to go right into writing about this last woman. And that will be it. That will be my last one.
Well, we look forward to that.
You know, I did want to do something with Elizabeth Berube. Liz Berube, are you familiar with her?
I'm not. I'm
In the 70s, I think even in the very late 60s, but mostly the early 70s, she drew single or sometimes double pages for DC's romance line. And they were fashion pages. They about makeup, about, you know, natural makeup, you know, putting just putting like oiling your lips rather than wearing lipstick, and you know, just ideas for clothes, some of them do it yourself. And her style was completely different from what the guys were drawing. It was very a combination really of Art Nouveau and Art Deco. Gorgeous stuff.
Oh, it
And
sounds totally up my alley.
we had spoken together about doing a book. She wanted to do a book with me about her work, and she died. Very sad.
I know.
And you know, I don't know enough about her to do a book on my own.
Yeah.
I have spoken with her son or corresponded with her son. There is always the possibility. Also, I have to get the rights from DC, which is a pain and a half, you know.
I can imagine. Yeah. So do you have any convention appearances or anything like that coming up?
Yes, why, yes. At the end of this month, I'm going to be at the, what is it called? Fan Expo, I think, convention in San Francisco.
Oh, fun. So fans can look forward to that.
Yes, if you live in San Francisco, come see me, come say hello.
There's your chance, people, to meet living legend Trina Robbins.
Thank God she's not a dead legend.
I know, sadly, we've lost so many great comic book creators in recent years. And it is really sad. So much great talent. And, you know, so it just makes me want to hold on to and embrace and celebrate the ones that we still have left. Anyway, I guess we'll end there, Trina, but I really appreciate you taking your time to talk to me. You graced me with a written interview in the past. That was like one of my favorite interviews. And it's just always such a pleasure. And you're such a legend. And I love your art. And I look forward, and congratulations on your Eisner, much deserved. And I look forward to your future work. And I'm definitely going to look up your memoir.
Oh, you must. Last Girl Standing. And thank you for having me here. And it was
Of
great
course.
to, meet you face to face, as it were.
I know it's funny with Facebook and social media. It's like you feel like you kind of know these people that you've had, contact with over the years. But like you said, it is really nice to see you face to face and get a chance to talk with you on this cold winter San Diego or San Francisco
God.
morning.
Yes.
All right.
But it's not going to rain. The San Francisco Chronicle says no more rain this week.
Oh, good. Well then, and it's always so beautiful after it rain, after a good rain. So
yes, the plants
enjoy
love
it.
it.
And your chickens.
And the chickens, they don't seem to mind the rain. They just kind of poof up their feathers a little.
Yeah, animals are pretty cool like that. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, Trina.
And
Thanks
you
so
too,
much.
Michael.
All right. Thanks for everything. All right. Bye bye.
Bye.